Hello, it's Miss Seichter. So I will be showing you how to use your gridded photo reference and turn it into an ink and watercolor portrait. So first I need to create the rough draft by drawing on drawing paper. It's not a good idea to jump right onto your final watercolor paper because any little mistakes you make along the way, if you draw facial features incorrectly the first time and have to erase, or if those grid lines just won't erase, they'll be very noticeable on your watercolor paper. It's not very forgiving. Plus, when you paint over it with something transparent like watercolors, it will not really cover up those mistakes at all. So starting off, I need to make sure that however many boxes wide my photo reference is, my drawing paper is the same. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boxes wide, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boxes tall. And there is a sliver of a 10th box right here. So I know that my drawing paper is 11 inches, and this is 7 boxes wide. So if I take 11 and divide it by 7, I get something that is a little over 1.5, and I need to round down. So if I round it down to an easy measurement like 1.5, I can easily make 7 boxes here, but I will end up with a little sliver on the right hand side. So using my ruler, I want to line up the edge of my paper to where my marks start on my ruler, which isn't on the side of the ruler here, it is actually right here. And every 1 inch mark is measured by the longest line here, and halfway between that is your second longest line. That is your 1/2 inch mark. So I won't be making marks every inch, I'm going to be doing it every 1.5 inches. And if measurements are a little tricky, and mental math is a little tricky, again, I'm going to line that mark to the side of the paper, not the edge of my ruler, but that mark. I can maybe make a little mark on my ruler indicating where that 1.5 inch mark is, so that I don't have to think too hard about relocating that the second time and slide down my ruler. Make another mark and slide down my ruler. If you can do the mental math of adding 1.5 by 1.5, that's fine too. It saves you a little bit of time of sliding down your ruler. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces for my boxes, and that little sliver where I had to round down and the math didn't quite allow for, I will have a little extra space. And later on, I can choose to crop that off or continue part of my drawing as if my photo reference did have that little extra space. I think I can manage to extend that shoulder a little bit further. So I do not want to flip my picture this way and start new measurements, because where that little partial box is will not line up on the top. Everything will be tilted sideways if I flip my paper. So instead of flipping my paper after doing my measurements, I'm just going to slide it and do more measurements. Again, lining up my mark with the side of the paper, not the edge of my ruler. And you can double check that you did this correctly, because that little partial box here lines up with the little partial box here. And I'm going to do the same thing on the wide sides too. I'm going to make little marks just at the end of my paper to help guide my drawing. One thing I'd like to point out is my photo reference is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boxes tall with a sliver of a 10th. But when I measured that 1.5, which worked well for the bottom of my paper, the wide part of my paper has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 boxes tall. So that means I'm going to have a little extra room at the top of my picture. There's going to be a little bit more background space than what my photo reference has. And that's okay for the grid drawing portion, but compositionally, if that bugs you later, you can crop that off. Now drawing my grid, I'm just going to line up one tick mark to the other by placing my ruler close to that line, a little bit to the left of it so that those marks are still visible, and drawing a line down. And if this were my final draft paper, which it is not, I'm going to want to draw really lightly so that those grid lines erase easily. But this is not my final draft paper. This grid line will not show up on my final drawing, so I don't have to worry about that too much. So now the grid drawing comes in. The idea behind this is if you draw a whole portrait all at once, it might be a little bit hard to capture the likeness of who you are drawing. But if you break it down into small boxes at a time, you can easily draw what's inside of a small box and then move on to the next small box, tackling it one small piece at a time instead of the whole thing at once. Now my photo reference is a little hard to see in some areas, such as this shadowy area. This is when I usually go in with a colored pencil and kind of help determine what's happening by maybe drawing some of those outlines. If you still, based on this picture, can't tell where your outlines are, even with trying to clear it up with a white colored pencil to kind of help define that for you, you might want to look at your original picture on your computer to help guide where you think those are, or reprint it so that those areas are a little lighter for you. So now I'm ready to draw it one box at a time, and I'm going to want to define the silhouette of my portrait first before going into some of those fine details. So I might start at this far end right here and work my way around. It might be a good idea to mark your halfway points so that you can see where your silhouette intersects those points. For example, again, I'm going to use a white colored pencil, but you can use a regular pencil, and with how graphite reflects off of light, you still can kind of see. If I'm going in to create those halfway points, it'll help me see in this box right here, because this is the first full box that can correlate with this. Here's my halfway points. I can tell that the edge of my shoulder starts here, just a little above that halfway point. And think about it like a mountain range. That mountain range, that series of hills and lines that go across my face, starts just a little above that halfway point and intersects just a little to the right of that halfway point. I see a little bit of hair curving this way, and I can draw that because it's so close to the top of that box. That gives me a frame of measurement. And again, right here, I'm kind of looking at a reference on the computer that's edited up a little lighter than this. But right here, the top of where that very subtle sloping hill that is the side of my hair goes from this area, kind of curves up and then back down and gets kind of close to that corner. I see just a little bit of that hair here. And once I get to some of the more complicated parts like my face, that is when the grid drawing becomes a lot more vital, because right now it's easy enough for me to draw a hill that kind of slopes and intersects that corner in this box. And you might want to keep track of how many boxes high you are. I'm now currently about to start this box, and if you lose track on your drawing paper, start counting. You can even make little notes on here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boxes tall. And since this is my extra and since this is my rough draft, if I want to very lightly write what number box I'm on, I can. Especially since this is my rough draft. You would not do this on a final draft. So if I lost track of where I'm drawing, I can count I'm 1, 2, 3 boxes over and 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes tall. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is where that part on my photo reference corresponds. So I've saved the facial features for last, only because they are usually the most vital in creating the likeness of a person. And this is when it might become very beneficial for you to break down each box into sub boxes. It's easy enough to figure out where a halfway point is between this corner and this corner, and then drawing right on your photo reference and making that those sub boxes, just because there's a lot going on in each individual box on my face versus on my hair or shoulder. So again, make sure you are 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boxes up. And I'm going to break this box down into sub boxes. This is a tip that might help some of you. It may not help all of you. Just use it if it helps. And working from my glasses don't quite get up to that corner of the halfway point. They don't quite touch the halfway point on the bottom here. So what ends up happening is my eyes are both not level, like how you might be tempted to draw this. This eye is going to be all the way up here and not get anywhere close to this halfway point right here. My tear duct extends further, but I cannot be tempted to draw my eye bigger than it can be. So this is where the white part ends, and it doesn't really extend much beyond the bottom of that box. But there is just a little bit of extra tear duct getting close to that halfway point. And it goes at an angle upwards. It's not straight, it angles upward because my face is tilted. And you have to draw what you see, not what you think an eye is supposed to look like. So if this box gets broken down into sub boxes, I see that my eye, where the edge of the white part is, ends actually right here. And maybe the corner of my eye extends a little bit further. Maybe that's my eyelashes, maybe that's a shadow. And then my iris is just barely peeking on the other side of this line and is about here. Now I might be tempted to draw my eye in the same height over here, but that's not what's happening. The eye from this box is one down and one over, which might look a little funny at first, but once the whole grid drawing is done, it will make a lot more sense and it's going to be a lot more accurate, simply because my face is tilting downward.